Hey guys, it's Davin here at brewbits.com. Behind the camera we got James. Hello James. Today then I thought I would brew up something a little bit traditional but make it a bit different. So I'm going to be brewing up this Tom Caxton Real Ale, but I'm not a big fan of bitters, so I thought I would zhuzh it up a bit. So the way I'm going to zhuzh it up, I'm going to use a tin here of the Muntons oat malt extract. And this is a mixture of liquid malt extract, barley, and also liquid malt extract made from oats, almost 50-50-ish. And the oats in here are going to add a load of extra body, give it a bit of creaminess as well, and it's also going to help things like head retention and everything like that. But the other things I thought I would do is I thought I would add some New Worldy craft hops into here. So I've got 100 grams of mosaic hops, absolutely fantastic flavors of those, of tropical mango fruits, passion fruit and other things as well. And also Sabro. Sabro's a cracking hop, adds loads of different flavors and aromas, all the way from like lemony, citrusy flavors, all the way to coconutty flavors. So that I think is going to work really, really nicely with that and that. I'm also going to brew it up with some Mangrove Jack's New World Strong Ale yeast, because it gives quite a neutral kind of flavours. It doesn't add very much flavour of its own, so it's going to let those hops scream and shout through. So the yeast that's in here, we're going to ditch, but we'll get on to that later. Okay, so I'm going to need a few things to ferment this load up. I'm going to use, obviously, my usual buckets. Going to have some bottles to put it in at the end. I need a siphon. I've got my trial jar with my hydrometer here. I've got a thermometer to check the temperature of everything. My stirry spoon. Me sanitizer? Go on, that's right, Bristolian, isn't it? My sanitizer to sterilise everything. And I've also got a straining bag. Right. The only other thing I'm going to need is a tin opener. Right. Now, as soon as I've got that, let's get on and get brewing. So, before I start sterilising everything like that, before I start getting on and brewing, in here, in our tins of liquid malt extract, let's pop this one off a second. There we go. Because in there is some hop enhancement and the yeast, but we're not going to be using those, and the instructions as well, and we're not going to be using those. And we've got this as well. So in here, in these tins, lots and lots of thick, gloopy liquid malt extract. Doesn't pour very well. So I'm going to pull off some hot water into my sink. I'm going to pop these in, get it right to the top of them, and leave them for about 15 minutes to soak. So in those 15 minutes, I can then get on and sterilise everything. Now I've got everything sterilised and ready. These are still soaking away quite happily. I need to get the kettle on because I need a couple of litres of boiling water. The kettle's boiled and these are ready to go. Now the labels on these do now decide to kind of just drop off, and you see there's all this kind of like glue, water-based glue that was holding it on. So this is why I've got my tea towel, so I can give it a good wipe down so none of that drips into our fermenter. Okay, so, ooh, a bit of a suck. Leave the top on a little bit, and the smell of this is already gorgeous. And pour that in. Cool. Now I know that's not all of it. I'm just going to do the oat one as well whilst I'm here. Lovely. We'll do the same with the oats. There we go. Slightly different colour. Okie dokie. Right, as you can see, there's still quite a lot of liquid malt extract in these tins. So we're going to do the next thing to get that out. So I've boiled my kettle, as I said. I've got my jug. I'm going to measure out a litre. About there. Now I'm going to pour some of it into the oat and some of it into the Tom Caxton. Lovely. And then I'm going to grab my sterilized spoon and then give it a really careful, gentle stir, because the tins are going to start getting hot soon. And then lift it up the sides as well to try and get all that liquid malt extract out. And we're going to do that the same with the Tom Caxton. Look at all this on the lid. Look at this. Oh, all that goo on the nom, 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 nom. Nom, 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 nom. Why have I started singing the Crossroads theme tune? That's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Right, now, those tins are going to be really, really hot, so this is where the tea towel comes in handy again. Or an oven glove or something like that. And then just pour that in. Okay, more or less there. There's still a bit in there, so we can go for another go. So I'm going to try and get a bit more of that out. With a bit more of this, and then I'll put the kettle on again because I'll need another litre, because I need 3 litres in total. Cool, and that's the 3rd litre of the boiling water gone in with the malt extract. And all we need to do now is just give this a good stir to mix all that boiling water and the liquid malt extracts together. Lovely, now all that's mixed in, I'm going to take my extendy tap and I'm going to fill this up and top it up to 23 litres or the 5 gallon mark. Cold tap water. So now it's all topped up, we need to mix in that liquid malt extract in the bottom with the water. So we need to get a really, really good stir and get it all mixed in. Now it's all been stirred in, I've taken a sample in my trial jar, and with my hydrometer, the SG is coming out at 1.046. And I've also here got my thermometer because, let me reach my yeast. The yeast, this one, which is the New World Strong Ale yeast, has a maximum of 22 degrees C. So we're going to try and get it down to there. And so we are coming out at exactly 22 degrees C on that. So I am going to pitch this yeast. There's literally this one. Sprinkle it on the top. There's quite a bit of yeast in this packet, so it should get the fermentation going pretty quick. And this is top fermenting yeast, and as it says, the temperature range we're looking at here is 16 to 22. So I'm not even going to put this in my warm place. I'm probably going to put this in my utility room. Let me pop the top on. There we go. And I'm going to leave it in my utility room now for about 4 or 5 days for the vigorous part of the fermentation to slow down. And once that's slowed down, then we can look at adding some hops to dry hop it and get some fantastic aromatic flavours into this Tom Caxton Real Ale mashup. The Tom Caxton Real Ale and the Muntons malt extract have been brewing away in my warm place now for the last 4 days, and you can see it's a big krausen's come up and a big foam came up and it's kind of settled down now. So over here, what I've done is I've taken a straining bag and in some water on the hob with a bit of cleaner sterilizer powder, I've boiled it for a minute just to make sure that it's killed all the germs and it's all dead. So it's still pretty hot, so I wasn't going to put my finger straight in it. There we go. Let's give that a rinse off. I have washed my hands and sterilised my hands as well. Right. Rinse out the steriliser solution from it. So now what I do is just open the bag up like that so we can get a bag of hops in. And here I'm adding the 50 grams of mosaic. So let me just grab a pair of scissors. And the reason I'm putting them in the straining bag is so that it can act like a tea bag, basically. If we were just to chuck these straight in, what would happen is these would soak up a huge amount of beer and then they drop to the bottom. And the problem with that is then you're left with a load of hops and beer at the bottom. It'll be about that much. So a fair few pints of beer you just can't get back. So I like to do it in this method by popping them in a straining bag. Tie a little knot in the top, not too tight because we're going to want to open this again. And then literally down in it goes. And this now goes back into my warm place to carry on fermenting for another, what are we on, day 4? So another 6 days. And that's going to allow all the yeast to get in there, get into those hops and start extracting all those lovely flavours and aromas from those hops via something called biotransformation. The first lot of hops have been sat now in my beer for 4 days, and they've been adding lots of lovely flavours to it. So I'm just going to find the end. There we go. It's just sitting here in the top. And I've got my sterilised jug here, so I can do that and get that out of the way. Pop the lid back on temporarily. Now, you need to tie this when you do tie it up. Tie enough that it doesn't come undone, but not too tight that you can't undo it yourself. Okay, so I've now got a bag of Sabro hops. I'm going to pop those open, but as we always do, have a go. Oh, you get some lovely aromas out of that. I can't place that. That's really weird. That's an aroma I really recognise from in the garden, but I cannot place that. That's nope. That'll come to me a little bit later, but that is lovely. And this is another 50 grams of mosaic. So we're going to get, oh yes, we're going to get some lovely aromas from the mosaic, lovely tropical fruity pineapple and mangoes, and the Sabros are going to give us some more beautiful tropical fruity flavours, and even some things like coconut and stuff like that going through it. Right, so give that another tie back up. There we go. Sweet. And this is now going to go back in. And this now, I'm going to pop the lid on because I've sterilised that. That's going to go back in as well. Lid's going to go back on now. And now this is going to go into a cool place, about 12, 13, 14 degrees C. As cool as you can get it, preferably, for another 4 days. And that's going to allow all those lovely, fantastic aromas to come out of the hops and add very, very little bitterness. And it's also going to allow all those lovely the lupulin to come out of the hops and make this a hazy beer as well. So back in now to a cool place for about 4 days. The Tom Caxton Real Ale with the oats and the extra hops have now been sat in my cool place for the last 4 days. So I've taken a sample in my trial jar, and with the hydrometer, the SG is coming out at 1.016. So I know that it's going to come out a little bit higher than what it would do if I just did the Tom Caxton Real Ale kit with sugar or even beer enhancer, because of the oat malt extract, which is a mixture of barley and oats. That's going to kind of lift the SG up a little bit. So there's going to be some extra unfermentable sugars in there. Okay, so it's been sat there quite happily, and in here we have got, come on in James, have a look at this. We have got this big bag of hops, and as I said to you, if we'd left this, just chucked them all in, they'd all be now sitting down the bottom about that high, and we'd lose a huge amount of beer not being able to get it back. So in here there is still a large amount of beer. So I like to get in and squeeze it out just by massaging it underneath, and you can give it a good squeeze and it all comes out. By the way, I have washed and I have sanitized my hands as well, but if you don't want to use your hands, you can use a pair of, well, you'll have to use your hands, but I mean, you can put a pair of gloves on your hands. Right, so there's still a fair bit to come out. Yummy. I think that's gonna be now about it, and the aromas coming off of this are fantastic. I've got a little metal bowl down here. Right, let me quickly just swirl my hands off. There we go. Right, so down here then I have got a sterilised bucket, and in my sterilised bucket I have got, ta-da, a siphon. And this time I'm going to use an auto siphon. So all we literally do is pop that end down in there, pop this end down in here, and back up to me a second, James. 1 pump, 2 pumps, and it gets flowing. Now I've racked it off the sediment in the other bucket. Here I've got about 135 grams of just brewing sugar. So I'm going to pop that in like that. And that's because I want this to be fizzy, because I'm going to be bottling this beer. So in it goes like that. And then with my sterilised spoon, I'm just going to give it a good stir, gently stirring it, because all we're trying to do is dissolve the sugar. We don't really want to mix any air into it. You just need to get that sugar dissolved. And because it's the brewing sugar, it's very fine. It does dissolve very, very quickly. I've got my bottling wand, which goes on the end of my tap. And over here, I've got my little table to sit on. But I've got lots and lots and lots of bottles. So all I'm going to do now is start filling up my bottles. I've got a few to do, so it's going to take me a few minutes. That's it all bottled, but I didn't have quite enough bottles, so I grabbed one of my mini kegs and I've put some of the beer as well into my mini keg. So what do I need to do now? Not too much. I need to create some pretty little labels for the bottle. And then these need to go back into a warm place for about another week. So 18 to 22 degrees C for another week. And that's going to allow the secondary fermentation to occur in the bottle. That's going to create a lovely fizz. And then after that week is up, I then put them somewhere again nice and cool for at least a couple of weeks for them to bottle condition before we then pop one in the fridge, chill it down, pop it open and see how it tastes. Well, I can tell you I've had a little sneaky taste from some of the stuff we put into the trial jar, and I can tell you that it's a very interesting, fruity, tropical fruity, quite juicy real ale, which doesn't sound like it should work, but it does. And we'll be doing a taste test video in the very near future, popping one of these open and letting you see exactly what it tastes like. And, well, how can you see what something tastes like? You know, you're going to have to make this for yourself. Then you're going to have to brew it up using the Sabro hops and the mosaic hops and just see what this combination comes out like. As always, down in the comments below, if you've got any questions, or if you've made this, or if instead of using the oat malt extract, you might have used the wheat, or you used perhaps a Vienna, or an amber, or whatever you've used, give me a shout. Let me know what you've used and how yours has turned out. And let me know if you do anything differently so that we can make some tweaks and stuff to our recipes as well. But there we go, something a little bit different. A Tom Caxton real ale with a Muntons oat malt extract and loads of mosaic hops and Sabro hops. Easy as that. Right, I'm going to go put these in a box and put them into my warm place. For you guys, thanks for watching. Cheers, happy brewing, and we'll see you next time.